Good evening. Here's what you can expect on NTV Tonight. Tonight, the law finally catches up with the quack doctor.
I will allow detention of the respondent for a period of only 10 days.
James Mugo detained for 10 more days as police gather evidence for prosecution. And embattles Migori Governor back in detention. This time round, it's all about guns.
Anything that is found there can be planted or can be brought by another person, so they cannot really say it's him.
Detectives question him on 8 guns from his Nairobi and Migori homes. Also tonight, taking advantage of the crackdown.
Dereva akona kila kitu, gari iko sawa, lakini mbona askari wasimama barabara kuchukua mia? That is our question.
Commuters decry arbitrary fare hikes as matatu operators claim the fines are too high. Plus, in the spirit of the handshake, bygones are now bygones.
We want to know where the public money went to. In NYS 1.
ODM leader Raila Odinga and Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru call end to all hostilities in yet another handshake.
NTV Tonight with Olive Burrows.
Let's look at those and other stories in more detail. Remember, you can watch us live on ntv.co.ke/live and using the NTV Kenya handle on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Our sign language interpreter tonight is David Agondoa. Quack Dr. Mugo has been detained to allow police to complete investigations into allegations of illegal dealings in his illegal clinic in Nairobi's Kayole estate. Dr. Mugo was arrested Tuesday evening. He had been on the run for almost 2 weeks. Nairobi Senior Resident Magistrate Ben Nzakio allowed the police to hold him for 10 days, saying that the 14 days requested by police is too long a period for detention. NTV Zainab Ismail tells us more.
Chief Magistrate Bernard Nzakio allowed police to continue holding Mugo longer after the prosecution told the court they needed more time to conduct forensic tests. The prosecution relied on an affidavit by George Oyer, an investigating officer in the case, wanted Mugo detained for 14 days. The prosecution told the court that the police are yet to record witness statements of allegations of obtaining money by false pretenses, operating a clinic without a pharmacy license, and practicing without a certificate. But Mugo had his own set of complaints. He told Judge Nzakio that 2 police officers who arrested him physically harassed and tortured him. Mugo was allowed to file a formal complaint against the 2 police officers.
I order that the respondent be taken to hospital for medical attention, and third, the respondent should lodge a formal complaint against the officers who allegedly assaulted him at Pangani police station.
The cat-and-mouse chase, according to the police, began almost 2 weeks ago when Mugo is said to have changed locations between Nairobi and Kiambu counties and used more than 3 handsets and 6 SIM cards during the time. Wednesday morning, and Mugo was at the CID regional offices at the Nairobi area ahead of his transfer to the Milimani law courts. He appeared shocked and a little confused. His efforts to escape the glaring cameras were met with a resistance by the police. Handcuffed, Mugo was accosted into the vehicle and the journey to the court began. Mugo has appeared before different courts with 4 pending cases on similar charges when he was first arrested 3 years ago. In an expose by NTV 2 weeks ago, Mugo, who operated 2 clinics in Kayole under the name Milan Healthcare, showed him carry out illegal abortions with the help of unlicensed personnel. He has been on the run since. 2 of his employees were remanded after it was found that just like their boss, they too were operating without valid licenses. In response, Mugo said he was disadvantaged as he did not have a legal representative. His case will be mentioned on the 23rd of November this year.
Following the arrest of Dr. Mugo Wairimu for a second time in a row now, detectives probing the case say they want to tie up all the pieces of evidence to establish a watertight case in order to bring justice to those affected under the hands of Dr. Mugo Wairimu. Zainabi Smile, NTV.
We now cross over to the DCI headquarters along Kiambu Road, where Seth Olale has been since earlier this evening. The arrest of the Migori Governor Okoth Obado and his presence at the DCI headquarters is what has kept Seth waiting this long. Seth, what is the latest?
Thank you so much. Actually, the latest, we are meant to understand that the interrogation is ongoing here at the DCI headquarters. We're being told that the director himself of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, George Kinoti, is the one carrying out this particular exercise. Another information or another update, we have been informed that the guns that were found in Migori County, actually at the home of the Migori Governor Okoth Obado, have been brought here at the DCI headquarters. Remember that 5 more guns were found at his Lavington residence here in the capital, and so that makes a total of 8 guns that have been displayed here at the DCI headquarters. And it is now 5 hours since that particular interrogation started. The lawyer, his lawyer, the Migori Governor's lawyer, Cliff Ombeta, is also part of this particular exercise. They're not allowing family members, they're not allowing supporters, and also not allowing politicians to make their way inside the DCI offices here along Kiambu Road. And so we just wait to see any moment if there'll be any update in terms of whether the Migori Governor will be released or whether he is going to be detained further by the DCI officers who've been here since 4 p.m. when they brought in the Migori Governor in a convoy amid tight security here at the entrance of the DCI offices. So, Olive, as it stands, that interrogation that started shortly after 4 p.m., it is still ongoing. It is now 5 hours, and yet the governor is yet to come out of the gates of the DCI headquarters here along Kiambu Road. Olive.
Thank you for that update, Seth. Seth Olale remains on that story. The Migori Governor Okoth Obado was arrested for the second time in 3 months by police. The arrest comes just a day after EACC detectives raided 2 of his homes in Nairobi and Migori, where a total of 8 guns were found. Obado, who was picked up at a Nairobi hotel, was taken to the DCI headquarters for interrogation. NTV's Mel Miendo with the details.
Migori Governor Okoth Obado is in police custody yet again. He was arrested Wednesday afternoon at a city hotel, this time over guns found in his Migori and Nairobi homes. Obado, who is out on a 5 million shilling bond in a case where he is accused of the murder of late Sharon Otieno and their 7-month unborn child, was arrested while attending a meeting with the country's development partners as part of the team accompanying Deputy President William Ruto. It is reported that 8 guns were found in his premises and crucial documents linked to a corruption case after a team of 60 EACC detectives raided his homes separately in Lavington, Nairobi and Rapogi, Migori, and conducted a 5-hour-long search. Whether the guns were licensed is likely to be a big issue.
Anything that is found there can be planted or can be brought by another person, so they cannot really say it's him. So they really have nothing as a case. But of course, the kind of pressure, the kind of person he is somebody is an easy target, so he will easily be clobbered.
EACC has been investigating Migori County for 3 years now on the loss of 2.5 billion shillings from the county's coffers. Obado is accused of using proxies, among them his relatives, to siphon the funds. Mel Miendo, NTV.
County Assembly members have revived calls for a salary increment to allow them perform their duties well. The MCAs say their current pay is not equal to their responsibilities, as most of them have been forced to finance their work from private earnings. NTV Silas Apollo reports.
County Assembly members are at it again. agitating for more pay, which they say will help improve their work and service to the electorate. The MCAs are of the opinion that at present, their salaries do not match their responsibilities, and which has in most cases forced them to dig deeper into their pockets.
What the society expects of the honorable members is completely different what the law says they should do. Let me tell you why. Can we accept in principle the MCA is the only elected leader sitting with the people every single day?
The demands are part of proposals by the County Assemblies Forum, the caucus body that brings together speakers of assemblies and ward representatives, and which were tabled before a Senate committee yesterday. MCAs have in the past been accused of blackmailing governors and speakers with impeachment motions in exchange of perks, allowances and trips, claims that the MCAs deny.
Can we judge our MCAs based on their constitutional roles rather than their ability to give in harambes, to participate in church thanksgiving, to participate? That is a question to the society.
But the push may not come easy for the ward representatives, with members of the public terming it unfair and selfish. Those who spoke to NTV today had this to say.
I oppose that plan. Kwanza sisi kama vijana hatuna kazi. Serikali inafaa tushughulikie vile tunaweza pata kazi. Hata kama labda hiyo pesa wanataka waongezewe, labda serikali ichukue hiyo token iongeze kwa youth fund.
Vijana hatuna kazi. Sasa sijui wanataka tuibe. Wakiongezwa mshahara, hiyo mshahara wanapeleka wapi? Hiyo mshahara wanapewa ipunguzwe, vijana wa employeewe bwana. Vijana wapate kazi.
MCA yule anataka aongezwe pesa. Mazejo aende kwa walime. Kwa nini? Hakuna kitu wanasaidia hao majamaa.
At present, an MCA is entitled to a basic salary of 165,000 shillings a month, up from the 144,000 shillings that had been set by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. They are also entitled to a sitting allowance, which has been capped at a maximum of 124,800 shillings monthly by the SRC. The MCAs also receive car loans and mortgages and other benefits. But it is their persistent calls for better pay that has in most cases put them at loggerheads with the electorates and the SRC, with questions being raised on the quality of work they do. Should the proposals by the MCAs sail through, the implication would be an increase in the already bloated wage bill, and which the SRCs want could be unsustainable in the coming future. Silas Apollo, NTV.
2 police officers have been sentenced to death for murdering an administration police constable and 2 other people in cold blood. Making the ruling on Wednesday, Justice Stella Mutuku said she was satisfied beyond reasonable doubt with all the ingredients of murder in the 3 counts jointly facing the accused persons. Police constables Benjamin Kahindi Changwa and Stanley Okoti were found guilty of killing Joseph Onchuri and 2 others on October the 7th, 2014 at M Club in Kangemi, Nairobi County. In her ruling, Justice Mutuku said she found sufficient evidence to prove that the accused persons acted outside the law in performing their duties and shot to death the 3 deceased. Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru has withdrawn a case where she sued ODM leader Raila Odinga for defaming her. Raila had linked Waiguru to the loss of hundreds of millions of shillings at the National Youth Service that led to her resignation in 2015. During a private meeting at the opposition leader's office at Capitol Hill, Raila said bygones should be bygones, while Waiguru said, in the spirit of cohesion and reconciliation in the country, the matter stands settled. Ken Mijungu digs back into the genesis of this conflict.
In the meeting, the two agreed to leave the matter of the National Youth Service scandal in the hands of investigators. In support of the reconciliation efforts, the Kirinyaga Governor, Anne Waiguru, told Raila Odinga that the case is now settled. The case was filed back in 2015 and until earlier this year had not made significant progress.
We hope that this matter, facts are going to come out in the process of the investigations which are being carried out by competent authorities.
The governor was aggrieved that Raila Odinga had linked her to the loss of millions of shillings and publicly asked Waiguru to take responsibility for the same.
And that matter, as of today, stands settled in the spirit of cohesion and oneness and reconciliation in the country.
In November of last year, Raila Odinga lost a bid to have Waiguru directed to provide information on her lifestyle. He also wanted the court to dismiss the case when it became apparent that Waiguru was not going to provide information about her lifestyle, including her assets. But then the court held that even though Waiguru refused to declare her wealth, she had provided sufficient reasons to the court for not doing the same and described the request as unnecessary and unreasonable. Among the issues Raila wanted Waiguru to respond to include her salary, allowances, list of properties owned, and material worth. But Raila was not the only one who was sued. Former Senators Boni Halwale of Kakamega and Johnson Mudhama of Machakos were also sued for linking her to the theft of the 791 million shillings at the National Youth Service. While Waiguru, who was then the Devolution Cabinet Secretary, admitted there was loss of funds, she denied involvement in the theft, instead taking the position that she was the whistleblower in the case.
Jina yake ilikuwa katika ile list of shame ambayo Uhuru alipeleka kule bungeni. Lakini Uhuru alitoa jina yake kabla hajapeleka hiyo list kule. Maana yake walikuwa wameiba zaidi ya shilingi bilioni 1. Mimi nimesema nimesema muongo, wanipeleka kotini.
This case was filed under certificate of agency at the Milimani Law Courts in September of 2015. She told the court that Raila's utterances over her alleged involvement in the scandal were false, defamatory, and portrayed her as a common thief, an embezzler of public funds, corrupt in the extreme, a flagrant lawbreaker, and unfit to hold public office. Waiguru had demanded an unconditional apology from Odinga and asked him not to repeat the claims and to admit liability or she would pursue damages. The case is now settled. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
Residents of Nairobi have asked the government to provide a permanent solution to the transportation problem, leaning more towards government-owned and run buses to carve out the matatu industry. They say that the NYS buses the government had teased about would help maintain the high standards of transportation and protect the average Kenyan from extortion through high bus fares. This even as drivers and conductors lament the high fines being charged in court over minor traffic offences, leading them to believe that the enforcement of the Mishuki rules could be a ploy for the government to increase revenue. Charity Mwangi has the details.
Traffic officers brought traffic offenders to court in the very matatus that were also found to be non-compliant of the Michuki traffic rules. At the courts, they waited patiently to plead their case. In a Molo court, the same was witnessed yesterday, with some of the drivers voicing their suspicion about the enforcement of the Michuki rules.
Matiangi tuambie, ni serikali ulikuwa unatengenezea pesa ama ni wewe ulikuwa unadhulumu?
The huge number of matatu operators indicate the challenge in waiting for commuters who are already feeling it on account of the exorbitant fares.
It may seem as though the transport situation is much better with fewer people and more buses here at the railway's bus terminus. However, according to city commuters, the situation is not any better because the cost of getting to work is too high for them to meet.
Normally we pay 20 shillings and 30 on Gong Road. Today they are charging 180 shillings. Like for now they are saying 80. We are stranded.
Maza is something like 12,500. Ikitoa hizo deduction na serikali nitabaki kitu kama 17. Hebu niambie 17 nitoa 150. Ikienda for 1 week, that's how much. Watoto watakula.
At the bus stops, the last-minute rush to meet the requirements of the Michuki rules was evident, amid confusion on what adjustments need to be done.
Gari moja tuangalie, wale officials zetu angalie, hii gari inatakana kuwa hivi, ndio tufanye hivyo na turudi kwa kasi barabarani.
Commuters demand a more permanent solution to the problem that has them missing valuable time at work.
Reduce aje inaitwaje train to 30 bob. And there are some people kutoka hapa lazima akifika town lazima anaenda bali pengine destination yake ijafika na aconsider hata kama wamereduce huku kwingine tutasaidika aje.
The government wants to help us. They should bring those buses. NYS. We are here. The salary is the same.
For the time being, the harvest remains ripe for the matatu operators still on the roads. Meanwhile, fish traders at the Kenya-Uganda border have hailed the move by the government to enforce the Michuki rules, saying that through the operation, the smuggling of illegal goods was uncovered. The residents have accused the border police of being compromised. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
The National Council of Churches of Kenya has welcomed President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive to revert the ownership and control of schools built by churches back to the church, saying it will improve quality of education, values and management of the schools. NCCK Secretary General Peter Karanja insists that churches have always owned the schools. However, certain government operatives over the years created optics showing the schools belonged to the government. At the same time, some education experts feel the directive will allow churches to negatively micromanage the schools based on their faith.
The directive by President Uhuru Kenyatta to restore ownership and control of schools built by churches to the churches, besides directing Education Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohamed to implement the directive in a week's time, has come as relief for the National Council of Churches of Kenya. NCCK Secretary General Peter Karanja has lauded the president and termed the move long overdue.
Government entered into partnership with the churches to support education provision using the infrastructure that the churches had put together. 64% or thereabout of the schools in Kenya belong to that DNA. They were owned by the churches, they were built by the churches, they were run by the churches.
The churches are also set to get their lands back as per the directive. Among the things churches were opposed to is the determination by the government to issue land title deeds to the schools that create autonomy of the schools independent of the churches. However, some education experts support the move.
Which is what I have described as usurpation of private property and its nationalization without compensation.
It is safe that they remain to be safe and be held in custody by either the National Land Commission or in certain contexts by the county governments where they are seen to be trustee land.
An amendment to the Education Act 2004 curtailed the power of the churches to appoint principals and board chairpersons. Section 11 of the Act requires board chairman proposed by the church, approved by the Ministry of Education.
Let government, and particularly the Ministry of Education and the Teacher Service Commission, be given the full support to run our schools. Otherwise, we're going to get into lots of chaos where principals are rejected on the ground that they do not belong to a particular faith.
If the church is uncomfortable about certain teachers being deployed in a school and says no, they should be taken away. The erosion of the values in our society basically have evolved in the backdrop of obstinacy on the part of government in enforcing a complement of teachers in church-sponsored schools who do not meet the standards of the church.
Some education experts feel the change in the Education Act to dilute the control of the churches over the schools was triggered after the churches abused their powers.
The ones that the church own and the ones that the church has declared its stake must include control, and the president has affirmed.
Vincent Odur, NTV.
Which side of the coin do you fall on? Do you support the churches operating these schools, or do you support those who say they will micromanage the schools? Send us your thoughts to @NTV Kenya on Twitter and tag NTV Tonight. The hashtag is NTV Tonight. Well, we take a short break, but when we come back, we tell you why the Muranga water wars are far from over.
Tonight with Olive Burrows.
Thank you for keeping it NTV Tonight. The launch of the County Action Plan on Prevention and Counter-Extremism in Garissa has drawn attention to the hostile relationship between law enforcement officials and local communities. Speaking during the launch, Garissa Governor Ali Korane said that the biggest challenge against terrorism is law enforcement's lack of a relationship with locals, citing the collective punishment by security agents conducting security operations in areas where militants carry out attacks. The launch of the action plan was presided over by the Right Organization for Advocacy and Development Roads and was attended by various county and national government officials. NTV's Mohamed Salah reports.
I'm really moved by the incidents the military and the security apparatus are doing, because we are both between the hard rock and between the rock and the hard service.
The mistrust between security officials and the people they are sworn to protect was a key issue during the launch and discussions of an initiative preventing and countering violent extremists. Governor Ali Korane accused GSC officers based in Ijara of beating people while conducting operations after the recent gun attack in the area that injured Red Cross volunteers.
As a response to that was to call the local chief to organize a baraza for him with the local people. And when people assembled, he separated them into groups, isolated the youth, and they did what they know best. They beat up all the young people.
The government says harassment by security officers is not government policy and that action will be taken against offenders.
Sera ya serikali government policy, police policy, army policy, sio kutesa mwananchi wa Kenya. Sio. So pengine tutafautishe pengine kama binafsi, na hiyo ni ujumbe tumepata na sisi tuando hiyo kama kuna chama ambalo lilitendeka ambalo liko kando ya sera ya serikali.
We want to work with the people. We want to work with the people because that's where the success is, and that's why we have this kind of civilian approach to dealing with the terrorism. We want to have an approach that is people friendly, people sensitive.
The governor says terrorism has had a devastating effect on the region and is promising to take the militant group head on.
Our schools have no teachers. Our health centers are closed. Our roads are impassable. Our communities can no longer continue to live their normal life.
Members of the Al-Shabaab terror group have been targeting civilians and security personnel by planting roadside explosive in the county and staging ambush attacks.
I think so far so good.
Salah Muhammad, NTV, Garissa County.
The battles between water companies in Muranga and the county government continue, with the managing director of Muranga Water and Sanitation Company, Muasco, accused of forging county documents in the license renewal process. Muasco managing director Daniel Nganga is accused of forging the signature of the county executive secretary for water, Paul Masharia, in a letter he had done to the Water Services Regulatory Board and using a fake stamp. Nganga was summoned by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations on Tuesday for interrogations, but he has refuted the allegations.
Paul Masharia, the Muranga Water executive, claimed that the Muasco managing director, Engineer Daniel Nganga, forged his signature and his official stamp to indicate the company had obtained approval to carry on with the operation from the regulator. He added that the regulator notified him, after which he wrote a protest letter and reported the matter at Muranga police station.
And the MD of Muranga Water.
The Water CEC disowned the letter dated 1st November 2018, in which the Muasco MD is purported to have sent a request for the renewal of license through his office.
They write the letter through the CC Water Irrigation, but then they forge my signature. They also forge my stamp, official stamp, and deliver the letter to WASREP. Of course, when the WASREP contacted me, I objected because this is not my signature, this is not my stamp.
In the past 6 months, management teams at 4 water companies have been at loggerheads with the county government, resisting a push to be under the county's authority. Muranga County Investigation Officer Julius Rutere said the police were investigating the matter after a report was made, saying investigations were at advanced stage. When sought for comment, the MD acknowledged having drafted the letter and submitted it for approval to Macharia. He said prior to writing of the letter, he had a lengthy meeting with Macharia on October 23rd for purposes of renewal of license to conform with the regulator's regulations.
I was invited yesterday by the CID to record a statement on allegations by the CMCC that I have forged his signature. It's my prayer that investigation agencies should fast track these investigations so that in case if there are forgeries in that letter, those who are involved are brought to book.
Murang'a Governor Mwangi wa Iria, who replaced chairman from 3 water companies, namely Kahote, Atamathi and Gatanga Water on interim basis, said there is a lot of vote in the water companies.
I also want to give caution to those boards that if the degazetted chairman executes any business, them or they and their directors and the managing director and whichever staff member will be involved will take personal liability and responsibility.
Martin Mora, NTV, Murang'a County.
The business news right after this break. for the collapsing sugar factories because it appoints corrupt leaders who are not put to task over poor management and misappropriation of farmers' money. This happens a day after Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuri threatened to shut down non-performing state-owned sugar companies in the next 6 months.
Mimi naona ya kwamba haitawahi fanyika, itafanyika tu kama yeye ataweka mikakati ambayo mimi nimesema hapa, ya kwamba hakikishe poaching hakuna, hakikishe zoning iko, hakikishe hii mkora na ile rai ambao naipa sukari yenye iko bei rahisi, hakikishe ya kwamba isikuje na mapenyenye wakora, ndio mambo iende mbele.
Serikali haijakuchukua hatua za kutosha. Nafikiri bila kitu ambacho serikali inataka, what the government should do, it should move ahead and involve more local people in the business of sugarcane farming.
This, as Kiunjuri said, that the bailout to farmers is the last that the government will offer to push the factories to be self-sustaining.
If these factories cannot work, then cross them. And I have to make decisions. I'll make decisions. In the next 6 months, any factory that will not be standing on its own, I'll cross it down.
Speaking during a tour of Nzoia Sugar Company, the CS also called for prompt financial audit of all state-owned farms by the end of the year.
Immediately that report comes, Wamarwa, tuketi chini pamoja. Soonest possible, after receiving that report, so that I will not pay any ghost supplier. Once I'm certified, I'm going to repay the farmer directly.
At least 5 sugar mills have been listed for privatization in what it has termed as a move towards reviving the companies. The 5 include Chemelil, Sony, Nzoia, Miwani and Muhoroni, whose performances have been crippled by obsolete milling technology, huge debts, poor production, mismanagement, corruption and non-payment of farmers. The government owns Chemelil Sugar Company at 96.21% shares through the Agricultural Development Corporation. It also owns 98.8% of South Nyanza Sugar Company Limited and another 97.93% at the Nzoia Sugar Company. A further 49% is held in Miwani Sugar Company, which is under receivership. Data from the 2018 Economic Survey shows that Kenya, which has an annual sugar consumption of 870,000 tons, saw its total domestic sugar production decline by 41.2% from 639,700 tons in 2016 to 376,100 tons in 2017. Lillian Carrier, NTV Business.
Consumers will be compelled to dig deeper into their pockets following today's review of prices for petroleum products. A statement from the Energy Regulatory Commission shows that the maximum price for a litre of super diesel and kerosene have all been reviewed upwards by 2 shillings and 38 cents, 3 shillings and 11 cents and 2 shillings and 99 cents respectively. In Nairobi County, a litre of petrol sells at a maximum price of 118 shillings and 11 cents, while that of diesel and kerosene will retail at a maximum of 112 shillings and 83 cents and 111 shillings and 83 cents respectively. This increase has been attributed to a rise in the average landed cost for petroleum products. Kenya's ability to meet China's demand for locally produced products is emerging as a point of concern, even as the government steps up measures aimed at widening access to the Chinese market. Kenya has thus far signed 3 agreements with China following the inaugural China International Import Expo held earlier this month in Shanghai to secure preferential treatment for traders targeting the Chinese market. According to the Ministry of Trade and Industry, however, the country could fall short of meeting China's demand for local products owing to low production capacity. In 2017, Kenya's exports to China stood at 10 billion shillings compared to imports worth 390 billion shillings from the Asian giant.
The issue that we need to start addressing is production, because the Chinese market is huge. So if it's opened up, what we may lack is actually the products to go there, given the size of the country, our country, and the market of 1.3 billion people. So the challenge we need to start now preparing farmers to increase their production to be able to meet the market. We are also working on how we can assist the small-scale farmers, small traders, to aggregate their products, and we assist them in terms of networking with buyers.
The 10th Development Partnership Forum, bringing together the government and representatives of the development partners community, took place today with a focus on facilitating actualization of the Big Four agenda. This comes even as the national budget for the financial year banked on support from development partners to address the 589 billion shillings deficit. Julian's Amboko with the details.
In an environment of glaring fiscal challenges, the government is now calling upon development partners to speed up the pace at which they honor their commitments. Even so, development partners are now calling for greater transparency and prudence in deployment of their resources.
We want our strategies to be aligned with the country's policy priorities. We are all entrusted taxpayers' resources for advancing development impact. Therefore, we need to ensure efficient use of public resources as well as resource optimization.
Also at the forum, county governments called for speedy reform of the public-private partnership regulatory framework, a move they say will unlock the economic potential of the devolved units.
That there is need to review the Public-Private Partnership Act to enable counties partner with investors. For the last 6 years the counties have been in operation, there hasn't been one single PPP engagement due to bottlenecks in the Act.
Beyond today's meeting, and coming at a time when there's growing concern about Kenya's debt position, the structure and terms attached to development support extended to the country will be a subject of intense scrutiny. Julian Samboko, NTV.
The fight against antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, which refers to the resistance of organisms to antibiotics, is an issue that is coming to the fore globally, with grim statistics beginning to be shared if the threat is not adequately tackled. Here's Alex Mwangi to put the threat of AMR into perspective.
The advent of antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, portends a huge challenge for the world this 21st century. One of the issues that is emerging regarding the fight against AMR is the low level of public awareness, besides the increasing resistance of organisms to antibiotics.
It is projected by 2015, AMR could cause 10 million human fatalities annually, an economic loss of $1 trillion USD annually.
Antibiotic resistance is a global concern that has threatened the very core of modern medicine. And even checked, it is likely to erode all the gains that we have had in veterinary medicine and even in human medicine.
Inappropriate use is using antibiotics when they are not required, using them in doses that are not sufficient, and that is the most critical one. Where you use them in doses that are not sufficient, then you trigger a process of resistance in the bacteria. And key to this is the fact that the drug discovery process, particularly of antibiotics, cannot keep pace with the level of resistance that we are seeing developed.
Globally, governments are setting up mechanisms to tackle the challenge that is as much a threat to humans as it is to livestock. In Kenya, the National Antimicrobial Stewardship Interagency Committee has been set up to address the issue. It is comprised of 17 institutions, including the Ministries of Finance, Trade and Education, as well as the Kenyatta National Hospital and the Kenya Dairy Board.
The burden of MR in this country is real, it is high, but we don't have the real statistics. We only have 2 sites that are giving us data, but 2 sites cannot be used to determine especially what is the burden of MR in this country.
The issue of budget, whatever has been provided, will be supplemented by the WHO, for example, OIE, and other non-government actors.
As focus on AMR is widened, enforcement of the purchase of over-the-counter prescription drugs is one of the key areas that the interagency team will need to look at. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
KCB Bank has posted a net profit of 18 billion shillings for the third quarter of the year, this being a 20% rise from the 15.1 billion shillings netted last year. The bank increased its net interest income by 2% to 36.3 billion shillings, while income from other sources rose by 24% to 3.3 billion shillings. KCB's profitability was to a large extent boosted by a 43% reduction in its provision for bad debts to 1.8 billion shillings. Overall expenses for the 9-month period thus declined by 2.1 billion shillings. That closes the business news. Thank you for keeping it NTV Tonight. Women over the age of 18 years who are interested in seeking political office are likely to get funding in a move meant to facilitate more women in leadership. The Democracy Trust Fund aims to fund women during campaigns. The Echo Network project hopes its efforts can encourage more women to seek political office.
As much as the numbers in terms of women in leadership have risen, majority of women are still not able to get their foot in due to a myriad of challenges. A group of women in leadership positions want the narrative to change, and Echo Network Africa is keen to walk the women in leadership talk. This they seek to achieve through a fund for women dubbed the Democracy Trust Fund. Only women will benefit.
Into the game, too late to make an impact. You ask them why, they tell you, I didn't have money to do anything. They do not endear themselves to the communities that they purport to support. They tell you, we don't have money.
The Democracy Trust Fund is set to ensure women are empowered financially to even the playground, just a little bit more as they compete for leadership positions.
Women will participate in creating that fund. That is the cardinal point of this fund, and that's why it is specific and special. Because it is no one is going to give women money for campaign. They will create that fund. They will participate. And how? They will save into that fund.
The Constitution has always spelled space for women to lead. However, the women have not been served adequately by the legislation to take up the leadership positions.
The fund is going to be managed professionally for them. But it is not a fund that they're going to put in money today and take it out tomorrow.
The 2/3 gender rule has been in contention. The latest such illustration of the contest around it witnessed in Parliament after members of Kewopa attended a sitting wearing white headscarves. They sought to raise women representation in the House. The fund is said to be non-partisan with a membership of 5,000 shillings. Helen Aura, NTV.
Faraja's Medical Support Fund has raised 100 million shillings to financially support children and adults with medical treatment for cancer. Today, they have received 5 million shillings from Kamau Mwai of Adana Holdings. His donation has helped Faraja reach the target of 100 million shillings within 2 years. The fund will cover medical costs such as surgery, brachytherapy, chemotherapy, radiation, and hormonal therapy. Faraja has been in existence for 8 years, and they have successfully provided emotional support to patients and their caregivers through free complementary therapies, information support groups, art and music therapy for children with cancer at Kenyatta National Hospital, and most recently through financial assistance.
All young, anybody, and to do that kind of work for unknown people, it's something which is worth emulating, and I must say, here, Saira, here Sonal, our other trustee over here. I think our chairman is not over here. I can't see myself. Thank you very much. Because
coming up is the sports news after this break.
Let's have a look at the day's sports news. Welcome, my name is Brian Otwal. The national under-23 football team started their Africa Cup of Nations qualifying campaign with a 5-0 demolition of Mauritius in the first leg at the Kasarani Stadium. The second round will be on Sunday in Port Louis, with the Continental Shoppies also determining who will represent Africa at the 2020 Olympics. Sean Kadavilis reports.
Kenya began her journey towards qualifying for the 2019 Under-23 Africa Cup of Nations with an emphatic 5-0 victory over Mauritius at the Kasarani Stadium. Johnston Omurwa and James Mazembe gave Kenya a 2-goal cushion at the break, before Piston Mutamba, Sydney Lokale and Joseph Okumu scored a goal apiece in the second half to ensure Kenya has 1 foot in the second round ahead of Sunday's return leg in Port Louis.
I think it was a wonderful performance, because this is like a new initiative with the Olympic team, yeah. So when you have the first match and they can build confidence with the first match with such a huge win, I think it's very impressive for us.
For me, it's not a surprising defeat. As I told you before, I told the truth. So in our country, our competition for the players, we stopped the competition 5 months. So the boys, as you see, they lack fitness.
The game also saw English-born midfielder Henry Ochieng make his debut, and the Braintree Town youngster was the second-half substitute replacing Ovela Ochieng. The aggregate winner from the double-header progresses to the second round, where they'll meet either Seychelles or Sudan, who drew 1-1. In other results, Burundi beat Tanzania 2-0, Ethiopia walloped Somalia 4-0, Uganda beat South Sudan by a solitary goal, while Rwanda and DR Congo played out a barren draw. The third round is set for June, after which 7 countries will join hosts Egypt in the Under-23 AFCON tournament in November 2019. The top 3 teams in the 8-team continental competition will qualify for the 2020 Summer Olympics men's football tourney in Japan. So it's a huge win for the emerging stars, and they have to keep the momentum going for the return leg in Mauritius this weekend. Sean Cardavillis, NTV at the Kasarani Stadium.
And to their seniors, Harambee Stars could pitch a 3-week camp in Europe before heading to Cameroon for their Africa Cup of Nations slated for June 15th to July 13th next year, should they qualify for the Continental Shoppies. The men's national football team is on the brink of breaking a 15-year jinx of featuring in the tournament after amassing 7 points in 4 qualifications, or rather 4 qualification games, awaiting CAF ruling on Sierra Leone FIFA ban. Kenya tops Group F with 7 points, 3 ahead of second place Ethiopia, while 4-time champions Ghana are third on 3 points. And while under 23,000 meter steeplechase champion Selfin Chespol from Kenya is among the 5 finalists for the 2018 Female Rising Star Award. Chespol won senior women's 10-kilometer race at the Africa Cross Country Championships in Algeria in March. She went on to bag silver in 3,000 meter steeplechase at the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games in April. In the men's category, Kenya's world under 20 10,000 meters champion Ronex Kipruto is among the 5 finalists. Others are Ethiopia's Solomon Barega, who won the 2018 Diamond League 5,000 meters trophy, and world under 20 triple jump champion Jordan Diaz from Cuba. Some basketball, and Thunder booked the remaining Kenya Basketball Federation Men's Premier League playoff semi-finals slot after knocking out rivals Equity Bank 79-58 in the decisive quarter-final game 3 at the Nyayo National Stadium Indoor Gymnasium. Thunder qualified on a 2-1 basis after both teams had the tied on best-of-3 series 1-1 in Game 1 and 2. Thunder will now take on rivals Ulinzi Warriors in the semi-final, while champions KPA will renew rivalry with last year's finalist Blades in the second semi-final, that is of the men's tie. In the Women's Premier League, champions KPA and FIBA Africa Zone 5 champions Equity Bank, who are both in Maputo to represent Kenya in the FIBA Africa Club Championships, and Storms have already qualified for the semi-finals. And Fulham have sacked manager Slavisa Jokanovic and replaced him with Claudio Ranieri, who guided Leicester to the Premier League title in 2016. Jokanovic makes a
Tonight, I asked you what your thoughts were on President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive that the sponsorship of church-owned schools should revert back to the churches. Just two of your responses. We have Gideon Kowech, who says the process of improving the quality of education in these private schools is unbearable. They can put someone in an antisocial oblivion. I know this, having gone through one. Mike Adaka Mbarikiwa says we expect high levels of discipline and sanity in schools. If the churches will control and solve these issues, well and good. We don't expect to see greed and the interest of them sitting in school boards manifesting. If you missed any story in this bulletin, remember you can go to our Facebook and Twitter handles, that is NTV Kenya, and rewatch the stories you missed. My name is Olive Burrows. Thank you for joining us on NTV Tonight. Our sign language interpreter has been David Agondoa.